that's kind of the biggest thing. This, innovation for all is like, is in the level of change, the amount of change that I'm expecting is sort of, 10 times, if not 100 times more than we saw over the past, say, 2 decades. We're going to see, 10 times more than that. These waves that used to come once a lifetime are now coming 2 or 3 times a year.
Hey Matt, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, no complaints.
It's good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you in person.
Yeah.
Yeah, sit down in San Francisco.
How are things up in Portland?
Pretty good, no complaints. It's beautiful, weather's starting to cool, it's nice.
Yeah, well, this is some of the best weather we get in San Francisco right now,
Yeah.
so you're getting the best of it.
Yeah, feel very fortunate to be here. Well, excited to sit down with you, talk about all things the release that we have coming up, but more importantly, what's been going on with you, what's been going on with the Brightidea company, and kind of where we're looking to in the future.
Yeah, it's been a hot second since we've really gone out to with a big communications to our customer base, and it's been a crazy few years, right? We had COVID, and then there's like wars and economy and all this stuff. Yeah, it's just I think if I think about where we are in this moment, I think we. I go back actually to Synthesize 2018, which was our last big conference. I think we were talking at that time about these 10 disruptive trends, artificial intelligence and the future of energy, future of space exploration, and how these trends were just going to kind of, rock the world, basically, and that people needed to, prepare themselves for that. And we had an astro surfer on stage, and we're saying, you got to surf these waves of disruption. Since that time, the next year we didn't even do a Synthesize event. We did a world tour. We went to the UK, Milan, and Australia. And then, basically COVID hit after that. It was 2020. And we just put our heads down. And, some people say the best, in challenging times, the best thing you can do is build. So, that's when we built out Whiteboard. That's when we built out Idea Box. That's when we built out Memo. And then now I feel like we're kind of like poking our head up for air and saying, okay, let's get back to reality. And that's obviously now we're come with the Brightidea Innovation Cloud 3.0, and again, to try and give customers the best tools they can buy for surfing these waves of disruption.
No, that's great. And I do feel like we're at that cusp of this great acceleration, and there's a lot going on, as you mentioned, anything from war to aliens to economy crashing, maybe not crashing. What's the thing that I think terrifies you the most, and at that point gets you the most excited when you're thinking about those trends?
I think that I used to have this card when we were a small startup, and it just had a quote on it. It said, "The best way out is through." Or if you're another way of saying that is if you're going through hell, keep going. And I think what people may not appreciate about the current moment is we're in the middle of a paradigm shift from an old economy, call it the 20th century, to the 21st century, and a lot is changing. I think about if you want to look at a historical example, there was a time in New York City where everything was horse and buggy, and their biggest problem was like the sanitation department was about cleaning up horse poop on the street, and then all of a sudden the Model T hits in the 1920s, and within 4 or 5 years there's photos that show you the same block that has all horses, and then 4 or 5 years it's all Model Ts, which is pretty crazy. So I think you have to realize that we're in transition from a major technological paradigm of the 20th century, which was industrialization. It was cars. It was the kind of suburban way of life, cheap energy, and you kind of commuted to work in these bedroom communities. And we're moving from that into wherever we're going, which is internet and media and misinformation and AI and all these new things, space exploration. So going back to that card, the best way out is through. If you're going through hell, keep going. We're kind of in this turbulent period, and you gotta paddle through it. You don't want to stay where the waves are breaking. You want to either go to the beach or paddle out, but you don't want to stay where the waves are breaking. So I think that's what's most exciting, terrifying, interesting, is just reminding people that, and like, just don't get analysis paralysis. Don't freeze up. Like you gotta seize this moment, seize this opportunity, because you know the world's not going to end, right? So it's never a good bet to bet on the world ending. It hasn't happened yet. So the world's not going to end, but so there will be a new system, and it will probably look fundamentally different than the system that we're currently in. And I think that's really exciting because the possibilities are just limitless. And I guess I'll say one last thing is that these trends are it's like waves stacking up at the beach. So it's like you go back 2 years ago, crypto, and everyone's like, what's crypto? How can there be a new form of money? What's an NFT? And then that wave kind of crested and crashed, and now we're in the middle of the AI wave, right? The AI hype cycle, and that's cresting right now, and I'm sure there'll be a period of disillusionment to follow. And then I think space is probably next. With Starship is, people are talking about private companies having their own private constellations so they can manage all their own communications and not have to go through regulated communication systems. So and we listed, we can put up the slide of all the other trends that I spoke to back in 2018, but there's energy 2.0, there's healthcare 2.0. There's a bunch of them there, and so I just think it's an amazing time to be alive. I think you have to look at it through the right lens. You have to look at it as an opportunity and not just challenged by chaos and complexity. And you have to get on your board and embrace it and paddle out and embrace these waves. Because if you stay in that break zone, you're just going to keep getting pounded by the sets of waves, and that's not good for anyone.
Yeah, and how do you think innovation teams now need to shift their processes or their focus now that they're trying to, typically they're looked at within an organization as somebody that should be that trend spotter, should be able to see those waves, but they still have to kind of make that impact and that monetary and that transformation change in the now.
Yeah, innovation teams are in a great spot and a tough spot. The great spot because the opportunity is so large, a tough spot because anytime there's sort of economic pressure, the bean counters come along and go, oh, what's this team of 5 people doing? What did we get from them lately? So I think it's the same old story we've always talked about, which is, you have to track your business impact of the innovation efforts that you're sponsoring. But I also think, as part of this release, that we've talked about that, we've talked about this theme of innovation for all, and I think that's a really exciting opportunity for anyone who's worked in innovation for the past few years or decade, because historically it's been just this small group of people. It's like, oh, let's take a 5-person team and have them make this 30,000 person company innovate. You were at Cambia, you were on the innovation team, and you know how hard that can be to kind of make all that happen. But now I think with things like hackathons and things like the Idea Box product, you can now take these products and hand them off to different departments in the organization. So it's not just left to those 5 people to create a culture of innovation, but the innovation team can really deliver tools to the whole company, and everyone can innovate. And we can get into all the different departments, but product managers need to collect ideas and improvements for their product, and marketing people might need to collect new ideas for how to market in this new age. I think that's kind of the biggest thing. This innovation for all is like is in, the level of change, the amount of change that I'm expecting is sort of, 10 times, if not 100 times more than we saw over the past, say, 2 decades. We're going to see, 10 times more than that. These waves that used to come once a lifetime are now coming 2 or 3 times a year. And I think that it's not sufficient to have just a small dedicated team to to try and stimulate innovation at these large organizations. Um, those teams need to really spread the gospel and spread the tool set out throughout the organization so that every team and every function or every major program or initiative can have a tool set to crowdsource ideas, to manage that end-to-end innovation process.
Yeah. I think it's really a maturity journey because you think about our mission of Best Idea Wins, and it's all about making sure employees have every tool that they need to make sure their idea is heard. And now it's this maturity of innovation teams realizing that if they are intentional, decentralization is going to work for them. Making sure, again, to your point, spreading the gospel, making sure there's people out there that are there in the trenches with you, surfacing those ideas throughout the business.
So yeah, I think it's exciting to see that those teams broadening their mandate to say, hey, it's not just us, through blood, sweat, and tears trying to convince everyone to be more innovative, but we can be kind of this enabler of other departments with respect to innovation.
Yeah. You talked a little bit about tools just then. I feel like right now we are inundated with solutions, and there's some sort of software or tool out there to solve every single micro problem I have throughout the day. Why Brightidea? Why does that tool stand above the rest?
Well, a lot of our customers, they kind of have a 10 or 15 core, platforms that they choose, and you have to decide what's important to the business. So obviously, typically sales is important to the business, and supply chain and accounting. Those are like important functions. And the CEO would come out and say, "Hey, it's one of our top 5 core values is innovation." It's like, well, then where's the IT system to back that up? Like is this just lip service? Is this just innovation theater, or is this important to you? And so I think that in this new world that we just talked about, innovation is the thing. Innovation is your business. If you're not innovating, good luck. Where are you going to be in 10 years? So I think companies need to pick a best of breed solution in that silo, if you will, and obviously it needs to integrate and interoperate with the other tools within the enterprise. But yeah, I think what we try and make Brightidea be is the best platform available for that, for collecting ideas from employees, for managing an end-to-end process, and over time it's sort of blossomed into this all-in-one innovation platform where you have things like hackathons and pitch competitions, and tools for innovation labs, and tools for reaching out to the external ecosystem, and trend watching, and with our Scout app and stuff like that. So I think what Brightidea has done really well is had a vision of how the future was going to be different, and that there were going to be an increased need for these types of tools, and we just bet hard on that vision, even if people disagreed with us or people weren't willing to fund that or whatever. We just went hard at it, and now that we're sort of coming into this chapter where these waves are coming multiple times a year, it allows people are recognizing, like, oh my God, like we need to like ramp our ability to do new things like dramatically. And it's nice that we now have this battle tested, hardened platform that they can drop in, and they can make it one of their key pillars for their organization, and basically go 0 to 60 with some of these innovation management processes that would otherwise be kind of hard to figure out or hard to kind of manifest with spreadsheets or other ad hoc tools.
Yeah, and I think one thing I'd love for you to touch on too is the whole concept when you look at a success of a business. It's the skill that you might have, the resources, the time. Why does ideas, and why that concept of idea management? What's the currency or the artifact of an idea, and why is that so important?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. Our customers are General Motors or Lockheed Martin, and their future depends on competing against companies like Tesla and SpaceX. And Elon Musk has said we need to like an exponential increase in our rate of innovation, and this is based on an already relatively elevated rate of innovation. So I think as I look at the world, I think like what is the key activity of the 21st century? What is the key skill to get good at? What is the essence of business in the 21st century? And in my mind, it's looking at this whole spectrum of possibilities of what you could work on and deciding what the most impactful thing to work on. So, at some point, Jeff Bezos was, selling books and selling stuff on, e-commerce, and they're like, hey, let's get into this cloud business, and now it's a billion-dollar business. Or hey, let's create a subscription service called Prime where we offer free shipping. And those were great ideas, and somebody recognized it and somebody invested in it, and they're now billion-dollar businesses, both of them. So I think that core skill of being able to identify the ideas that exist within the organization and fuel them and give them, coddle them and develop them, is the essence of business in the 21st century. So while if you go back 2 decades, you might say, oh, your idea management system is not as important as your CRM system, or is not as important as your supply chain system. I think as you get deeper into the 21st century, you're going to say it is as important, and it may be more important, and that ideas are the thing. So I think I think you have to build up. You have to get this stuff in place, and I think that you have to kind of make some guesses about how the future is going to be different. And I think that other platforms have added idea management. Like you have like companies like Aha that have like a lightweight idea portal, or Salesforce Ideas, which is they bolted the idea piece onto the CRM. It's a really interesting phenomenon that all these other tools like Zendesk for support has added ideas, and the product management thing has added ideas. It's like, what's going on here? There's this thing forming, and everyone's trying to bite at the edges. It's like, yeah, but what's at the core of that? And the core of that is idea meritocracy. It's allowing, it's ensuring that the best ideas win. Because if Amazon didn't pick Prime, or it didn't pick AWS, they might not be Amazon. So I think in the 21st century, the essence of business is going to be identifying those opportunities and funding the right opportunities amongst a whole pile of possibilities. And you go back to those innovative trends, like they're all intersecting, right? So you've got AI intersecting with space, intersecting with healthcare, and every time those trends intersect, it creates an opportunity for innovation. And so you now have this like massively expanding space of innovation potential or possibilities, and you have to go in and reach into that space and pick out the thing at the right time, the right thing at the right time, and sequence all those actions. And I think that's really challenging. I think it's a lot harder to do that than it is to manage a lead through a sales process, or manage inventory on a ship coming over from China. So I think you've seen all these other platforms on the periphery add idea management to try and cover the space. Oh, we do that, and it's like really just this weak portal with submit, vote, and comment on ideas. And I think they're kind of encroaching. But it's a more interesting question to look at the center of the space that they're encroaching on, which is idea management or innovation management, and recognize that activity is the essence. I believe it is the essence of business in the 21st century. And if you spent $20 million on your supply chain system in the 20th century, you might need to be earmarking that level of funds. I mean, we've got a few customers above $1 million a year, and we just passed 3 million registered users on the platform. I think I saw some numbers. We've got I don't know. I don't know if I have the numbers on the top of my head, but it's something like $20 billion in registered business impact on the Brightidea platform. So I think that having systems and automation and collaboration tools to facilitate that process is the most important thing. And I think if your CEO is saying innovation is a top 5 priority for the company, believe it and bring tools to that individual that can make that a more repeatable process, because I think this is the most important thing, and I don't think you want to have a ad hoc or a sort of side bet on it. I think you want to define which platform you're gonna choose to cover that pillar for your organization.
Yeah. You talked a little bit about kind of innovation techniques or processes that they need. What advice would you give an innovation team to make sure that those CEOs acknowledge the importance of that dedication? You talked a little bit about ROI tracking.
Yeah, I think it's still an alignment question. So you still have to go align with is the organization focused on cost cutting? Is the organization focused on product development and growth? Is it focused on competitive advantage and is it focused on margins? You have to figure out what those executive leaders are trying to drive out of the organization, and you have to basically align with that. And beyond that, yeah, I think business impact tracking is the single most important thing that an innovation team can do, because like I said, when the bean counters come around, when it's like, oh, we're going into a recession, what can we cut? And they're thinking, someone might think, well, I need to get my bonus this year. Like I'm not, I don't care if this innovation team builds something that's gonna, create revenue growth in 3 years out or 5 years out or 10 years out. I just need to get my bonus, so let's get the margins up. And so I think you have to really, it's still a very tough job, and you have to be ready to evangelize and make the case for innovation. But the thing you can always do that's gives you some bedrock to stand on is track your whole financial picture of that your innovation program, and every dollar you spend on your team, every dollar you spend on tools, every dollar you spend on rewards or implementation, and then you have to track all that and show that as a program you're delivering more net value back than some other investment opportunities that the business might have. And at the end of the day, that's the best thing to kind of ensure the future of an innovation team.
Yeah, I think you definitely need some grit, some kind of perseverance and endurance too, because right now, as you said, these waves are crashing on them, and the ability to keep your head up, don't intentionally bury your head in the sand, acknowledging what's coming for you and kind of preparing to hold your ground there. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it makes sense for every innovation team to develop a charter, and we work with our customers on this, and what is the mission of this team? What are we trying to achieve? What capabilities do we have? How do we align that with the mandates of the executive team? And then you adapt, right? Like I think of the past 2 years, a lot of people have been surprised by this AI revolution that's happening, and that's a perfect example of where an innovation team can insert itself on a disruptive threat to the business and say, let's run a hackathon, and let's get people building prototypes around how AI can affect our business, or let's use AI to optimize things and see where we can extract costs due to AI, or let's create a forum for employees to say what they need to start to integrate AI into their business. So they might need licenses, or they might need security issues, or whatever. Again, that's just one of several disruptive threats, but I think those are all opportunities for the innovation team to plan ahead, and then also be reactive to whatever kind of pops up in the day-to-day.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to chat a little bit about our product features that are coming down the line for our fall release.
Innovation Cloud 3.0.
It is here. I'm excited. Yeah, I feel like that was one of the things you talked about, innovation for all, and trying to figure out, what value do we want to deliver? And it was, this global presence that there's so many great things that our customers are doing. that we can't hyperfixate on one area. We really spent time talking to customers, figuring out the trends, looking at data, where are people activating, where are people seeing, recorded revenue and business impact. So excited that this is a global application, yeah.
What were some of the upshots of the research you did in terms of gearing up for this release?
Yeah, so I feel like it was interesting to talk to teams because obviously with 20 plus years in the business, we know what innovation teams are doing. We know where some of their strengths are, where there's opportunities for us to embed ourselves stronger in the organization. And it was interesting to see that there are things that haven't changed. The fact that they still need to figure out how to transform the business. They still need to prove that they have, an ROI. They still need to prove that value and that kind of repeatable process to make sure they reduce that friction. But also, there's new things that have been introduced that are problems that they have to solve for, whether it is, the waves of disruption that they're trying to counter against their balance within their business, but also process stuff. Half their workforce is potentially at home. They don't have that natural kind of energy or momentum that they would get pulling people into a room. So we definitely were trying to figure out the new ways that they've had to pave their way. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been really interesting to see customers, we've seen kind of a, huge uptick in interest in things like hackathon with the remote work. We've seen an uptick in Idea Box, where they're kind of like more teams are interested in idea management. And it's it's interesting to see as the environment shifts that their demand surges around these new tools.
Yeah, and the first feature we can talk about a little bit is Whiteboard, because I think that has a great message around kind of connecting those dots, the throughput for what it looks like in your pipeline elsewhere.
So give people a little bit of background on Whiteboard before we dive.
Yeah, so Whiteboard launched back in the fall of 2017. And it was right at the time, it was definitely a COVID project, trying to figure out, what do we want to build? What does this look like? And there were a lot of tools out in the market. So we had Miro, Mural, FigJam, Figma, all these kind of zoomable user interface tools, infinite space. So we knew there was a there because innovation can't be trapped. It needs to be spread out. And we also...
This is like an infinite canvas where you invite your friends in.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's the thing, is a lot of design thinking background, innovation teams, they were hosting these massive sessions. Like I remember having to orchestrate these in rooms full of people, and every single sticky that was thrown up on the wall mattered. It was somebody's idea, it was something that was going to transform the business, it was something that mattered. And when you go into these kind of infinite spaces, you sometimes just evaporate and forget how important all those elements are. So we kind of took a critical eye and said, we're not just going to repeat, throw a library together, create the same tech that you see anywhere. What does it mean for a whiteboard to be created by Brightidea? So that was our first kind of aha moment, that it was these facilitators, these innovation teams that had to carry the burden of making sure that every sticky was tracked, nothing got lost in your trunk of your car when you were moving different conference rooms. So we definitely created that mechanism, and we now have stickies that can be directly dropped within your pipeline. So every idea is tracked, every idea can be watched and monitored and followed up on and matured directly within your pipeline. So that was kind of the cusp of why we released Whiteboard.
Okay. Yeah. And then what sort of new capabilities have you guys been adding?
Yeah, so we definitely worked on the smart object item. So we launched shortly after the release, we did a smart matrix, which you can score impact versus feasibility. Most recently in the summer release, we created what we call stacks. So if you think about this infinite space, and there are people that don't love that infinite space and things can get lost, and so creating some rigor around being able to track and order. You can drag those stickies into a list, get it, prioritize it, really start to create some structure within your brainstorming and with your catalog. So with this release, we're adding a couple enhancements where now you can create unlimited ideas right from your pipeline into your whiteboard. So we did have this capped. We were seeing the size of these backlogs were massive. So being able to sit, shift, organize, all of that right within your whiteboard is a huge added value there.
Okay, yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Anything else under Whiteboard for this release?
Yeah, the big thing else that you're going to see is a lot of just more customization on those smart objects. So you're going to see the ability to customize your own templates. So if you start to create a good structure for your team that you want to share across the department, you can utilize that. There's a lot more accountability within there. So those stacks, those stickies, you can now assign, follow-up items, track what the next steps are. So really trying to keep with that all-in-one accountability. How do you mobilize on those ideas within that whiteboard and not just let them sit and go to the wayside?
Very cool.
Yeah.
So why don't we go into Idea Box next? And I know that's been a area of focus. So what's the team been working on with respect to Idea Box?
Yeah, I think Idea Box is interesting because it is, I would say, the most flexible, nimble app that we have in order for people to just jumpstart if they don't know where they want to start. And I know it was launched fairly recently. I know you mentioned the COVID era. But launching Idea Box definitely has that ability for anybody to come in. You can have human resources teams, marketing teams, product teams utilize it, as well as innovation teams. And in talking to our customers, one thing we realize is that not only is it flexible in the architecture, but it's also flexible in how teams can craft it to map their process. So we were seeing this natural evolution where Idea Box was the app going out to those different departments. So we created this concept around a team site. So that team site allows individual departments to come together, stand up their own custom process. You have a custom URL. You have the ability to invite, different security and permissions for that box, create your own process, your own pipeline, and use it as that department sees fit. So it simplifies a lot of the activity, a lot of the navigation, and creates this incubated area that they can succeed.
So the team site kind of aligns with a single department, and they use that. The Idea Box is used for that department.
Absolutely. Yep.
And then I saw something about backlog and pipeline. So what's going on within that team site?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a couple concepts there that when you have a list of ideas and we have the tools to help you prioritize and score, there's everything that falls below the watermark. So how do I know that I'm not forgetting something about there? I'm not just gravitating towards recency bias. So we re-evolved what our backlog concept is. So it's something that we're introducing. It's, I would say, a model off of our top ideas and allows you to surface based on those scorecards, based on that smart matrix that you used in Whiteboard, being able to capture kind of where in a category am I missing potential ideas, or I need to focus to expand my business to kind of create a safety net. So backlog is definitely something that is introduced within this team site, an ability to make sure that you're keeping things top of mind. The other thing that allows you to do is we understand that ideas come in all shapes and sizes. So the ability to have quick wins versus big strategic transformative ideas, things that just need to be collaborated and matured a little bit. There's all these different types of scales, and being able to create sub-pipelines underneath that team site so you can send those ideas to different pipelines to apply a different process, but all curated and captured under one community.
Okay, so I set up the team site for my department, and then I can collect ideas and kind of incubate the ideas in a backlog. And then when I'm ready to move them forward, some of them might be big ideas that require a little bit more development and evaluation. Some of them might be smaller ideas that, kind of just do it and get it to the right person and make sure we track that it got done.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Anything else under Idea Box?
No, that's it for Idea Box, and then it bleeds right into some program updates that we have going on.
All right, let's do programs. Everyone loves programs.
Everybody does love programs. So I'm curious, I know program's been obviously a top seller for us. It's something that gets a lot of users mobilized on. Can you talk to me a little bit about that and the history?
So yeah, we introduced programs, I think, back in 2016, and it was really about an innovation team that was just getting started, and they had this small team. You might have 5 people, a company of 10,000 people, and how do they have an impact? And we felt like crowdsourcing was a real lever for them to kind of give them like bionic arms to kind of shake the organization a little bit. So we talk about, but that those teams typically weren't given like a whole pool of resources to actually develop the innovations, right? So they would get ideas, but if they were actually expected to build stuff, they didn't have UX engineers, they didn't have database designers and stuff like that. So typically what happens is when you're a new team, you don't have those resources. you're kind of acting as a shared service to the rest of the organization. You go and you help them get the innovation that they need to do their day job, as contrasted with a lab where you might have the resources to execute. So yeah, programs is all about short-term events, crowdsourcing challenges or pitch competitions or hackathons, Shark Tanks, and you run that for a short period of time. You collect the ideas, then you kind of hand the ideas back to the sponsoring organization.
Yeah.
So that's some of the background on why we created programs, and yeah, it's been a really successful product. I think it's like 30 or 40% of our revenue. So it's definitely it's a tool that a lot of companies use. So I'm curious what kind of goodies you guys have.
Yeah.
Product team.
So the first update we have is global across all of our apps that we have within the program family. But one thing, and it is interesting because it shows a level of maturity and also a little bit difference on that time box element. So as you mentioned, most of our apps here have a start, middle, end date. They're pretty locked down, and it's built on a very linear, kind of one-directional path. But in talking to our customers, there's a lot of times when things start going through and the idea has matured or has been challenged and information has been updated, and oftentimes that means they'd be just adding on to this pipeline. And so we've added the ability to resend those action items. So if you have scorecards set up, development fields, anything like that where there's protocol that you're questioning and evaluating that idea, you can resend that. It's updated based on anything that's been updated. The history is tracked so you can watch that maturity of that idea. So that's kind of one of the first global updates that we've done.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, I definitely think the workflow is, there's always interest in new permutations of the workflow. So it's the more options and configurability, I think, the better in that area.
Yeah, absolutely.
What else is going on in programs?
Yeah, I'm excited to talk a little bit about our hack app. So over the course of the last year, we saw almost a 300% increase in customer utilization of our hack. So we really had to pause and kind of say, what's going on here? Is this, a trend that we're seeing innovation teams start to use? Do we trust the data? All those questions that any business has when they start to see those anomalies. So we took a look and talked to a number of customers that were running hack across all different industries, across all different team sizes and types. And we realized there's a lot of things going on. One is when you think about the culture in the last 2 years, and we kind of talked about it a little bit, like you and I are remote. We live in different cities. Everybody's struggling with that. So you had these hack apps that were big productions in offices. You're walking down the hallway and you would see what was going on. And now people are remote or hybrid, and administrators are trying to figure out how do they keep that energy, that momentum, that whether it's self-serving and they want things to get done quicker, or it is about this energy and about this culture of innovation. And so we saw this spike. More and more people were leaning into the process. So we did those interviews and found really different problem areas on both pre, during, and post hack events. So super excited about some updates there. I know you've talked to some of those customers as well. Kind of what are you seeing in the trends in the hack world?
Yeah, I've seen a couple interesting things. One is I think our services team has really ramped up there.
Absolutely.
And they kind of do this white glove thing when hackathons, like for an executive or for company wide or something where kind of everything has to be pixel perfect. Our team's really developed expertise to go in there and help not just configure the software, but kind of all the surrounding decisions and steps that have to happen. So they've been, I've seen, frankly, rave reviews from the people who work with our team to kind of get those things going. Maybe it's their first ever hackathon. The other thing I've seen that's I think is really interesting is companies looking to consolidate, multiple departments doing hackathons. So one of our customers has run 50 hackathons in the past few years, and some of those things were just happening on a Google Sheet, or some of them might be using a standalone siloed product, and they thought that Brightidea was the best platform to pull all those activities together, or each individual event has its own kind of secure space, but you can also get the roll-up reporting across all the hackathon events. So those are probably two of the biggest developments that I've seen that are interesting. But I'm curious in terms of the research that you've done, what insights surfaced and how did you guys respond with the product?
Yeah, I think that last point that you just said about, the amount of tools, I think I read a study recently that on average before like 10 a.m., the average person will have 27 pieces of software open on their computer.
Oh my God.
I'm pretty sure I triple that. But it is fascinating because when you think about that context switching, that labor intensive, like how do I extract this to move it over here? It puts the burden on whoever that administrator is. And you said some of these are massive productions that have the CEOs looking at outcomes. Maybe the CEOs are, sponsors, they're bringing in external partners, all the way down to just, a small IT team that wants to ramp up around, an AI hackathon on how we can integrate on the search engine. So it's definitely this kind of how do you eliminate the friction that the administrator has, and then how do you remove the friction that as an employee, if I want to participate, those elements that I might have, those barriers to entry. So we spent a lot of time on that pre-event of like ramping it up. How do we make sure it goes smooth? So one of the things that we are releasing is a register or join event feature.
Okay.
So a lot of times the event starts, system goes on, people start submitting ideas, and we were missing this opportunity at the beginning that a lot of people were using Eventbrite, Google Sheets, notes on a piece of paper of how many people are going to participate, getting a head count. If they are doing it in person, there's a lot of material and planning that goes into that. So the ability to pre-register, get that head count, it also gains excitement and recognition within the organization. I think what's magical about hackathons is every person you talk to has a sense of pride that they were able to participate in it.
Yep.
So it's huge to be able to kind of capture that and keep that magic alive in the system.
Okay, so there's sort of like a pre-event phase that I can kind of say, hey, I'm interested in being part of this.
Yeah, definitely think there's going to be legs to be able to share that then, get other people, your teammates, your peers, the person that sits across from you that's super smart that you want on your team,
right.
Starting to recruit, which falls into the next kind of problem we wanted to solve, which was that team building element. When you think about team building, there's kind of two edges of that coin, and one is participants. They need to find, I just want to participate. I don't have an earth-shattering idea. I'm not going to change the world, but I want to be a part of it. And then you have people that are going to come to the table and say, this is what I want to work on. This is kind of what I'm thinking of, but I need this type of skill set to join me. So being able to add your expertise, say that you're wanting to join the hackathon through that pre-registration, and calling out if you're looking for people, you're looking for teammates, or you're open to join a team. You can browse through the different projects that are available and kind of opt into that. Then there's the other side of the coin of accepting and rejecting those applications. So as a project lead, you can kind of sort through, figure out who you want to join, maybe do some recruitment there and some messaging throughout our platform. And that allows that to really become this crowdsourcing generation, as opposed to the administrator having to send emails and slacking teammates and hosting open hours to find. It's all kind of done within the platform. They don't have to worry about it.
Okay, cool. So you added some richness to kind of the team building function and expertise, and okay, very cool. Yeah, I definitely think that'll resonate with customers. Anything else that you guys have added to Hack?
Yeah, those are the big updates. I'm really excited to kind of see those out in the market. We have, with all those updates and those features, obviously the administrators are going to be seeing updated exports, updating dashboards, all the stuff that captures that information. They're going to be able to mobilize on it. Yep. Okay,
cool. Yeah, one other thing I just thought of is the not just the work from home, but a lot of companies now have offshore development, and a lot of their technical expertise exists in those places. And I think the challenge is if you run a hackathon with like a Google Sheet, it might be sufficient for that one department, but what happens if there's someone in Mumbai that's working on some blockchain technology, and there's someone in New York City who's actually interested in that? That's not going to get off that Google Sheet and get to the person in New York. Whereas if it's all on one platform, you can kind of connect those dots, and if someone subscribed to a tag like blockchain, they can basically get an alert of that activity happening. So.
And I think there's an added bonus with time zones, that if you're on a hackathon team with those time zones, I know there's usually a lot of barriers when you're just trying to be productive during the day, but you essentially have 24 hours of that team executing work and passing off that information. So being able to recall and know exactly where everything is huge.
Yep. Cool. Yeah, I think that hackathons are a great tool for just getting physical engagement with innovation, and if the culture is feeling a little static, or the culture is feeling a little kind of stuck in a rut, then it's a great way to just we ran an internal hackathon, and just Celia, who's one of the people in our sales back office, she was just doing this thing, cutting and pasting out of our CRM system, and she was like, "Can someone just help me with this?" And someone jumped on it and fixed it, and now her life is better, instead of doing that all day, every day. So it was just some little tweak of automation. So not always the big new product that makes people smile. It can sometimes be just a small tweak that to internal processes.
Yeah, that little thing that's going to delete you or shave off that 10 minutes of that thing you don't want to do, it's huge.
Yeah, and I felt like she never wanted to raise her hand, but when she was at the hackathon, she was like, "Can somebody help me with this?" And and it got done. So it's cool.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. That's great.
Okay, cool. Well, that's a lot of good stuff for programs, and I'm sure we're going to continue to refine that offering and make sure it's remains best in class.
Yeah.
Why don't we jump to labs next? Obviously, labs. In contrast to programs, labs was actually designed to be for teams that actually do have resources. So they have the UX engineer, they have the database, DBA or someone, or they have marketing person, and they can actually take an idea and prototype it, build the MVP, take it to market, and run those experiments. So what do we have in store for people doing those types of activities?
Yeah, it's interesting. We're introducing this feature that is completely baked in with our current platform and our current process around the stage gate methodology.
Okay.
So very familiar process for innovation teams. I know I've had to go through it before, and it's probably the one thing that starts making me sweat bullets immediately when you're going into those gate reviews. But it is a great process. Because
why does it make you sweat bullets?
Well, everything makes me sweat bullets. But no, I think it's this concept that with StageGate, you're basically running. Your teams are sprinting, trying to figure out everything they can depending on the stage that you're in, whether it's discovery, whether it's testing and validating. You're really trying to bake out to make sure you have all of your nooks and crannies, all of your T's, your I's dotted, and then you're basically stopped. You are then presenting your heart and soul and everything that you believe in, all of your weaknesses too, because that's the most important element, to whatever stakeholder or steering committee might be, and they say go or no go.
Now, would you guys actually have a gate that all the projects were decided at the same time, or was it just when your project reached that stage of maturity, you brought it to that team?
It's interesting. I feel like I've run it both ways.
Okay.
There's an element of if you run it when you're ready, you're going to have better baked out processes. Your stage is going to be more eloquent, but the issue there is you could have a team that is just mobilized, highly productive, just wants to crank that out, and they could just be running at a faster cadence, and you're potentially missing those opportunities with those things that are taking longer to vet, taking longer to bake. But then if you host them all in the same timeline, it's fiscally more responsible because then you kind of know where your wallet is at any given time.
Yep.
But there is then that sense of like, well, something might need to take longer, or you might have people twiddling their thumbs as they're kind of sitting on stuff.
Right.
So I've seen it work both ways. Have you gravitated towards?
No, I don't. Yeah, I don't know. I've seen it both ways as well, and I think it's something that people grapple with. Is like, do we want to batch everything and make a decision at the end of the quarter, or do we want to just say this thing has gotten through that phase of maturity for that project, for that type of project, and make the decision. So, but I think one thing is for sure, everyone's stage gate process is a little different, right? Like it's very rare everyone takes this the kind of template process and just runs with it. They're often tweaking it to fit it for their department.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what we tried to, when we were talking to customers who are using this process, taking from our own, personal anecdotes on the things that make you sweat or the things that get you excited, building this integrated within our pipeline so people can immediately send an idea that comes in. They can enter into that stage gate process. We've created custom templates so we kind of give them a leg up, knowing that they can then come in and modify, enhance, remove elements.
So if I'm an administrator, is this part of the workflow? How does this all?
Yeah, so it's going to be part of our step configuration.
Okay.
So users are going to be able to come in, immediately open up their, step config and add that specific stage to it. So they can say, hey, at this point we need to go into the scoping stage. And with that, it creates, I know we referenced previously our project room, and that's what we're using as our core basis of this. So it sends that idea directly into your project room. And from there, you're able to have that template that shows, whether it's a business model canvas or, a PRFAQ that you need to craft, as all those assets and those artifacts directly in that stage.
Okay.
Once that team, so you're able to invite team members, you're able to identify who the different subject matter experts are. Once that group says, hey, we're good, we're ready for review, that's when that gate process is added as well.
Got it. So you basically set up each stage, each gate, and then as the idea or the record moves through the pipeline, you're completing those deliverables at each stage, and then reviewing it with the gates. Yeah, I can tell a quick little story about StageGate, because in the early years, dating myself, this is probably going back to 2003 or something like that. I saw Bob Cooper, who actually owns the trademark on the term StageGate, so no offense, Bob, great work, but we'll call it PhaseGate or whatever. But our stuff is StageGate-ish, I guess. So StageGate actually grew out of the petroleum industry, and what happened was they were refining oil, and they had all these products that were spinning out of it because they had waste products. Gasoline was actually a waste product at some point. And they would just spill it off into the river and
responsible.
Yeah, exactly. 20th century, right? So, some people don't know that Vaseline is actually it's something that's extracted from the oil when they're when they're refining the oil. So the petroleum industry was doing so much volume, there were all these side projects and side products that were spinning out of it. And so they realized wait a second, we can't just keep developing all these products. We need a structured process to decide, what is this product, who's the customer, what's the, what are we going to price it for, all these questions. So they created the StageGate process, Rob Cooper did, to kind of put kind of gates in the way, so that a team didn't just run for 3 years developing something. They kind of checkpoint at different steps. And but anyway, I went to one of Bob's seminars way back when, and he had this quote of, "You have to be willing to drown a few puppies," which is a little bit crass, but basically every idea in the early stages looks cute, and and you want to keep it around, but you actually have to be pretty ruthless and relentless in triaging that portfolio and only letting the best ideas move forward.
Great, and I'm happy to reflect that during our product development process and validating which ideas will move forward, no puppies were harmed. So which is good.
Good to hear. Yeah. All right, so as we move forward through the Brightidea Innovation Cloud, the next stop on our journey is Brightidea Ecosystem, and this product is obviously designed for the innovation team that's looking outside the company to source innovation. So you might be looking to academia, you might be looking to the startup community, you might be looking at patents that you might be able to license. Basically for looking for emerging technologies that could be interesting to integrate within the business. So thus the name ecosystem. So what's going on in that product area?
Yeah, we have two big updates. The first, right on the cusp of what you just said, I'm going to talk about AI. And I feel like we've made it so far in this talk without really talking about it. But in our summer release, we obviously released some key elements of AI within our platform. I think, I don't know about you, but it is one of those things where, yes, we're in the middle of the wave, but it is mentioned constantly. It's kind of like the buzzword bingo. If you've gone through a day without clearing your entire bingo board without hearing AI, like, lucky you.
Yeah.
So what we try to do is take a step back and say, how can we make sure that this is intentional for our users? We didn't want to just drop an AI API.
Yeah, there's a lot of people are just hopping on the trend and stuff like
everybody's
that.
just saying, like, look, we have this thing that you can ask a question. It's got a magic wand on it. It's cool.
Right.
So we were very intentional. We've been using elements of AI for years with our user home recommendations. With Memo, most recently, last year we released that, the ability to ask AI to help you kind of build and mature on your long form narrative. And then our last release, we added the ability for admins when they're setting up their apps to ask AI for AI generated imagery. When you're submitting an idea, you can use that same capability, as well as build an idea description from the title of your idea. So we really were intentional at what's the points in time where you need almost that assistant to just bounce an idea off of and help me mature, get over that hump. We also integrated with whiteboards, same thing when you're in a brainstorm and you kind of hit that wall. But most recently we were kind of looking and talking to customers that talk to those startups. They have to keep an eye on partnership startups, different companies that are out there, and so our Scout app is the perfect app for that.
Scout app being a tech scouting, for people who are doing a tech scouting function.
And so being able to ask Scout during that pipeline setup, I can, as an administrator, say, hey, AI, tell me what companies are out there in this industry. What am I missing? What are my, gaps? What are the things that I need to keep an eye on? So the ability for the AI to kind of respond, give you those, 10 to 15 companies, and you're able to immediately drop them directly in your pipeline.
Got it. Okay, cool. So I can basically go in there and I can say, oh, I'm looking for advanced LiDAR technologies or low power LiDAR, and it'll go and look for companies that are working in that space and put them right into the pipeline. Okay, cool. All right, that's great addition. Anything else to talk about with ecosystem?
Yeah, the one other one that we were talking about, we kind of talked a little bit about hackathons earlier. In our discovery with our clients, we did find a lot of customers were having to figure out how to better engage with their partners or with external vendors or their community. And I think this is a sign of maturity within innovation teams or within organizations. I think it's a sign of comfortability, as well as kind of the acknowledgement that just as if you engage your employee base, ideas are everywhere. So how do I make sure I'm engaging and capturing those? So one thing that we are launching is we took our well-known, well-loved hack app and updated it so it now sits within ecosystem. So what that means is it's pre-configured and updated to work with external audiences, just like the rest of our ecosystem apps.
Nice.
We did make, obviously there's system changes that need to happen from a configuration standpoint, and then we also really looked at our playbooks that we have, the designs of the app, and said, what information needs to be weighted differently. Obviously how you engage, what's the toolbook, the playbook that you go live with, as well as sponsors are maybe more important, prizes are maybe more important if you're trying to get ideas in. So we really shuffled around the designs, gave it a more updated feel, so knowing that site is potentially external facing, where's your business boilerplate, all of that fun stuff.
Okay, yeah, because I know it can be tricky sometimes configuring an initiative for external user access and not mess up your security with everything else. And frankly, there's a lot of customers that do things like, oh, we're an HR team, we want to go to a university and do a hackathon on our company's technologies, and then use that as a way for recruiting or for kind of brand outreach and stuff like that. So that's cool. That makes a lot of sense to put a hackathon app into ecosystem and just make it easier to spin those things up.
Yep. Yeah, extremely excited about that one.
Cool. All right, last but not least, transformation.
Yeah, transformation, it's interesting because it's even that word, it carries so much weight to it of it's like these big strategic shifts that you want your business to kind of morph into and build onto. I'm curious kind of what was your guys' vision originally when launching that product?
Yeah, it was basically that is, we think about it from the maturity model standpoint, and like things like, whiteboard and idea box are really easy, bite-sized to get started. Programs is when you've actually set up a team and that team's going to try and, stimulate innovation. Labs is when you have a team that has dedicated resources. Ecosystems when you're looking outside the organization, and you get to transformation, and it's basically innovation for all. How do I transform the entire business to be kind of tuned into innovation and idea meritocracy? So yeah, that was the spirit of it, and it's some transformation teams have used it to track the projects that they're working on. So not just what stage of development is it at, from an idea to a proposal to execution, but all the way to the business case. So they'll say we expect this project to deliver $20 million in cost out or cost savings, and then they'll actually come back and track the actuals and say, oh, we got 23 million, so we did better than we expected. So it's really like, again, a lot of executives talk about transformation. It's like, well, where's the rubber meets the road? Where's the system that's tracking this? Because if you just talk about it, speech only gets you so far. So that was kind of some of the original thinking on the transformation product.
I think that sentiment rolls into some product updates as well, where it is just how do you make those right course corrections or those right tools to really up-level whatever innovation you're doing now. So we talked a little bit earlier about, the update to backlog and the team site. So rolling that out to additional apps is going to be huge. Also rolling out top ideas in all of our different apps so you can kind of surface what matters the most. Making sure that you're focusing on the right thing at the right time is so critical. Acknowledging when things need to kind of go to the backlog. And then, as we mentioned, the team site. So being able to break down those silos, roll up and stand up these different departments and these different initiatives across the organization.
Yeah, I think the team site's it's a really, really powerful shift, and I think it helps these innovation teams, provide tools to these other departments and basically open up that opportunity, because they can kind of operate as standalone entities, right? Some random department can have an idea box, and someone can log in right to that and have its own security and not kind of be intermixed with all the other stuff going on. So, and that those sites have their own dashboards and all that jazz. So that's cool. Anything else under transformation?
Yeah, that's what we have for that. I'm super excited to kind of see that evolution. Yeah.
There was also one other thing that you mentioned about allowing our customers to explore their apps that are available. So maybe you can speak to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we realize is, this decentralization of innovation is so critical, not just for businesses, but also these innovation teams, because they're usually a little bit scrappy. They're already running lean. So how do you kind of mobilize and add those extra arms, as you put it, to these teams? So the ability for end users now, when they log in, they're going to be able to have access to all of the different apps that we have. And when I say access, I mean being able to discover, to be able to explore what options that they might be equivalent to what they want to run within their team. So they're able to read through the playbooks, read through the information. They're able to engage with whether it's one of our customer service reps, or be able to talk to their own innovation team and say, like, hey, I'm interested in sponsoring this, or this is something that I want my team to stand up, or here's a problem that I need to have solved, what would you recommend? So it really kind of enables that decentralization and that empowerment to those end users.
Yeah, that's really it's amazing how much you guys can get done in such a short period of time, and I know our customers love getting these releases out every 90 days. Any other broad thoughts on just the overall release and the experience?
Yeah, I think the experience all in all, I think innovation teams have their work cut out for them, but it's the most exciting time right now. Being able to kind of pull the thread of best idea wins, that every employee voice matters, but giving them the tools to make that a repeatable process, to make that, reduce as much friction as we can, and, create a space where innovation is for all. So super excited about this release, the topics that we're talking about, the conversations that I'm hearing our customers have. I think all in all, it's a very exciting time
Okay.
for yourself.
Yeah, I think I really like the theme of innovation for all, and giving the innovation teams tools that they can spread out, whether it's the idea box and the team side, or whether it's this allowing any user of the platform to see what other tools are available to them. I think these are the things that these organizations need to embrace the challenge of the future, and I think they'll basically end up being table stakes at some point. But right now, there's a real competitive advantage if you can latch onto these things and create value with them ahead of your competition. So thanks again, Katlin. Thanks for coming down from Portland to do this. It's really great to chat in person. To all of our customers, keep fighting the good fight. We're trying to give you the best tools we can possibly make to support you and your innovation teams. And as we say within the company, stay tight, stay light, and stay bright. And we'll talk to you soon.